Hello and welcome back to the channel. You are joining me on a brisk winter's evening, so the sun is already starting to set. I do apologise if the video looks a little bit darker than normal, but I just wanted the opportunity to get out and drive this car. The roads are dry for one, and there's no better feeling than a dry road and a Porsche 911. It is a 2002 996 Carrera 2. And it's come in part exchange against a Land Rover, which I did a prep video on. So this did belong to the workshop manager of the garage that I use, and as you would expect from any reputable workshop manager, it's in fantastic condition, both mechanically and also cosmetically. I'd say he's probably most likely had the wheels refurbished relatively recently, because they are very clean, like immaculately clean on the inside of the rim as well, and bodywork is in really lovely condition. There is a tiny little bit of rust starting to bubble through on one of the arches on the front, but it's to be expected. I mean, as I say, it's 2002, so that's now 23 years old. I think you've got to have a little bit of slack just for being on UK roads, but yeah, it's one of these cars that you realise how much time has moved on in the automotive industry when you get into one of these, but at the same time you realise how much it's one of those instances of don't fix what isn't broke. So recently I did a video on a Porsche 718 Boxster. It's a 2019 model. Don't get me wrong, I know that the technology inside is vastly different than what the technology is in here, but in terms of a drivability, they do feel quite familiar. You know, across most Porsches that I drive, they feel kind of similar, and from one vein to another. And given that this one's now 23 years old, it's still an absolute hoot to drive. It's fantastic. So being the Carrera 2, it's a rear-wheel drive. Obviously there was the Carrera 4, which was the four-wheel drive. It's the 3.6 litre engine. I've got the Tiptronic gearbox in this. I think that's the only improvement I could really make, is if it was a manual. I think it's the perfect weekend car for having a manual gearbox, a real good bit of fun. But saying that, it's a 5-speed Tiptronic, and it really doesn't feel too bad. It's really quite responsive. So if I put my foot down now, into second, oh, it started life with 315 brake horsepower. I'm not sure how many of those horses, if any, have escaped over the years, but that certainly feels very punchy. But I don't think I can really get over the size of the car. It feels like a really small car. I'm currently following a relatively new Honda CR-V, of which it looks like it's massive in comparison to what it is that I'm driving. The cockpit's really quite small. You know, you feel quite confined within, not in a bad way. It makes you feel like you're driving what is going to be a future classic Porsche. I have to say the pedals are really off centre. They're really over to the left, and what it feels like it'd be more comfortable to actually do a bit of left foot braking rather than bringing your right foot over, because you have to really, your right foot's really in front of your left hip when you're doing a bit of braking. So yeah, left foot braking isn't necessarily a hard thing to do in this car. But the throttle just feels ever so raw. It feels like you're in complete control of that engine and what horses it's going to be kicking out. Obviously it's not automatic lights or anything like that. I've got buttons on the steering wheel, but that's more for the Tiptronic control. So if I do that, I can knock it down on gears. Obviously not paddle shift, it's using these buttons here. And then if I go across to manual, ooh, and then back into drive, it takes me out of that Tiptronic, but everything just feels very tight and really quite pleasantly surprising on a 23-year-old car. It has only done 58,000 miles, and the history is fantastic all throughout. It's really quite pleasing to see. The Porsche service book has got, I would say, most likely 15 Porsche stamps, and then there's been a couple of independents that have looked after it as well, Williams Crawford being one of them. They're a Porsche specialist down in Saltash near me, and a massively reputable Porsche specialist at that. So really pleasing to see that they've looked at the car as well. It's got the right tyres all around. They're Pirelli performance tyres, P0s all throughout, all in really good tread. The disc and the calipers even look to be really nice condition. So yeah, I mean, the interior, again, there's no rips or tears in any of the bolster. All the leather on the dash is all really quite nice. I've got a Bose sound system, which would have been an additional extra from factory, and it doesn't sound half bad. Obviously it's a radio player in here, and there's a 4-disc CD changer just down here, which would again been an additional extra from factory, and it's pretty good sound quality. I've got the luxury of climate control, but again, looks quite dated. I really don't mind, to be honest. When I'm driving this, I'm not driving it for what its interior tech is. I don't think I really listen to the radio whilst driving it. I'd much rather listen to the soundtrack that the car kind of provides you from factory, because that 3.6 litre sounds tremendous. And of course it is sat just behind me here. It's a 4-seater model. I'm not sure I'd be too comfortable sat in the back of it, to be honest, and I'd much rather be sat in the driver's seat. But if you really needed to squeeze kids in the back because you bought it as a Sunday family car, you could do. And if they're into cars, I think they'd enjoy it. If they're not into cars, they maybe won't, because it is a little cramped back there. But just, I'm incredibly pleased to have it in stock. And it's one of those cars, I get them every now and then, where I really don't mind if it doesn't sell for a little while, just because of what it is. It's really pretty to look at, kind of brings the element of the stock up for me. And if I get to take it out for a little blast every now and then, I think it's a petrol head's dream little car, really. I do think it is going to be a future classic, if not already a bit of a classic, only because I think the 996, it looks tremendous, especially the Carrera variant of in the coupe. I think it looks almost timeless. If you used to have this next to a modern day Porsche and squint, they'd almost look the same. You could definitely tell the heritage from it, but it just, I think it has a real rawness about it. As I say, it doesn't have an enormous amount of buttons for me to play with. The dials look fantastic. They're all analog dials on the center here, with like a white backing, of which there are different variants out there that you can have different colors. It's got a digital speedometer. The rev counter is nice and big in the middle, so when you put your foot down and you watch that go around the dial, it looks fantastic. Got temperature gauge, got oil pressure gauge. It just makes you feel cool when you're driving it. There was one that I saw a little while back now, and I thought that, you know, that 996 looks stunning. And possibly the only other combination of colour that I would have liked is metallic black with a tan interior. I thought it was a really classy kind of combination, but I think it looks really quite good in silver as well. It keeps it looking a little bit more modern. And trust me when I say this, silver paintwork on a 23-year-old car is a lot easier to maintain and keep looking pretty than, let's say, black paint. And I think everyone knows that. I think it's just a natural thing. But as I say, in terms of additional extras from factory, the only things that I can really note that I know are additional extras, it has a rear wiper blade, has the climate control on here rather than just your standard air conditioning, got the Bose sound system, and the fact that it's a 4-seater as well. Got electric adjustable mirrors, but they don't fold in or anything like that. But to be fair, it's such a smallish type car that you can kind of comfortably park it anywhere and not have to worry about things like that anyway. I've even got the Porsche word on the handle, which I think is an additional extra on that there. The leather seats are nice. They're not heated. I know you can get them with heated seats, but I've got electric windows. But as I mentioned, with all of this, it's nice to have, but it's not why you drive a Porsche 996, or certainly not why I drive one. I think I drive it because it just feels so connected to the road, and as I say, it just I'm in awe of it, really. It's already generating quite a bit of interest just from people that pop in, and I don't think anyone said a bad word about it, just because of how it looks and how pretty it is. And I just think a nice evening like this with dry roads, it just, yeah, an absolute joy to drive. Unfortunately, I'm sat on roadworks at the minute, which isn't ideal. But obviously the engine's at the back and it sounds fantastic. I've got decent amount of trunk space in the front. It could definitely be a perfect weekend car. And rather than torturing people by putting them into the back of a small coupe, I'd use those back seats for luggage as well, if I was to take it on a bit more of a journey than a weekend. But everything feels so well built. None of the switch gears faded. Engine and everything feels really robust. The throttle and the brakes. It's one of these cars with the history that it has, even though it's 23 years old. If I had the time to just drive to the tunnel to this afternoon and do a road trip to the Porsche Museum in Munich or something like that, or Motor World Hotel, I'd have every bit of confidence in the car to do so, just because I think, you know, given that it is a modern classic Porsche, and the times that they build their cars, that they just feel so solid, I would have no issues with it whatsoever. I'd absolutely love to do it had I had a bit more time, but unfortunately restricted just to a few Devon roads at the moment to kind of show my enjoyment of the car. Just, I don't think it's lost that many horses. It feels quick, even by today's standards. It's absolutely tremendous. And I know that there's a Ford Focus RS with more power than this, but you can keep it. I don't want it. I just want this. It's an absolute joy to drive. And yeah, I really don't have anything bad to say about it. I think the only way that this would be a more perfect example for me is if it had that manual gearbox, but that doesn't necessarily take it away from the Tiptronic. It is still a really responsive box. I think you just maybe have a bit more fun being in a little bit more control. But yeah, it is in my stock range and it's absolutely stunning. I hope it doesn't go anytime soon, which sounds so bizarre to say. But just what a joyous little car this is, and I really hope that it goes to someone that will enjoy it as much as I have, even in the couple of days that I've been driving it, just because of how cool it is. So yeah, I really hope you enjoyed just a fanboy video of an old Porsche, and yeah, I hope that you like and subscribe to the channel. The numbers are growing, and I shall catch you for the next one. Thanks very much.